the first time since 2014. We have Olympians in, I should say, we have NHL players in the Olympics. This is a wildly dangerous, I think, hockey fans, NHL fans everywhere, fingers crossed for health. But this is going to make the intensity that's already incredible ramped up even higher.
100%. And I have mixed emotions about NHL players playing in the Olympics. I think it's great for the sport. If you want to look at the good side of it, it is great for the sport. I talked to TJ Oshie. He really kind of catapulted to not just national, but international fame in 2014 in Sochi when he made 4 of his 6 penalty shots to beat Russia. It was massive. It was huge. He was an American hero. And I think that all of a sudden put so many eyeballs on the NHL, on TJ Oshie, because people wanted to follow what he was doing. It gave the NHL a larger stage because it had an international stage at the Olympics. And I think vice versa. Whenever NHL fans see their favorite players playing in the Olympics, they want to tune into Olympic men's ice hockey. So it's a symbiotic relationship. We see the Olympics that much more exciting because it's names and it's players that we know on both the women's and men's side. And it also makes the PWHL and the NHL bigger because you have a larger stage. But Fitz, I have to look at it from the other side as well. And we've heard Gary Bettman, commissioner of the NHL, talk a lot about this as well, is whenever you have players playing in physical, high stakes hockey games, there is a risk of injury. And that makes the NHL product diluted. When a Nathan McKinnon, a Cale Makar, an Austin Matthews, a Sebastian Aho, certified NHL superstars. Now, knock on wood, I would never wish injury on anyone, Team USA or not, of course. But if those NHL superstars get injured in the Olympics and they're out for the rest of the NHL season, that hurts the NHL product. You're never going to eliminate the risk of injury, right? Those guys could get injured playing in an NHL game. But I do understand Gary Bettman's concern or NHL fans' concerns of the NHL product hurting because of what might happen on the Olympic stage.
The hardest part about that is the risk. You're right. Now, fighting in the Olympics is absolutely not tolerated. Automatic injection, 15-minute penalties. Like the fighting penalties are through the roof. But this is interesting to me. They made a massive change to the rink. Typically, Olympic hockey has a larger rink that leads to, a little bit more space. In 2026, the ice is tighter, so they wanted a faster, more physical game, similar to NHL play. So they're trying to ramp up the physicality in the Olympics. I saw that, knowing that they're changing the rink this year, and immediately thought, man, that's going to make for a great product to watch, and that's only going to make every GM of every NHL team puckered up from the beginning to the end. And this is the hardest part because when you are the NHL, you need the billboard of the Olympics. You need the worldwide, the global advertisement of it. You need the captivated eyeballs. The fact is, nothing would be better for the NHL than Team USA and Canada both just absolutely going on a head-on collision where they end up playing for a medal, right? Like that is in 2014 when we had such great rivalries from the NHL, it carried over. It gave momentum to the season after the Olympics, and I felt like a lot of people that were watching it were incredibly interested in what was happening in the NHL immediately after the Olympics because of the passion we saw through the Olympic process. So I think you need the billboard, you need the passion, you need all of these things that come from it. You need people to fall in love with the sport and want to carry that love with their favorite players over to their favorite teams. But Caroline, the risk of that is real, and you're 1,000% right. The worst case scenario is that somebody's shot at Lord Stanley's Cup is derailed by an injury in the Olympics, which Gary Bettman and the NHL don't have to care about. They're not partners in this. They're just doing what they think is right for the sport by taking this time off and giving Olympians the opportunity to compete. There is so little win and so much opportunity for loss. I understand why the NHL is nervous about this process, and I also understand why one big injury would change the future of their willingness to cooperate at all.
I do think, though, with all of that being said, I do think overall it's a net positive for the NHL because I think it's a net positive for the game of hockey. And it's a game that wants to expand. It's a game that wants to get more popular. It's a game that is far more popular overseas in countries like Finland and Sweden and Canada, far more than it is in the United States. If you don't live in a hockey city or if you didn't grow up in a hockey city, You probably don't really care that much about hockey, but we know what you do care about? The United States. And you do care about the Olympics. So if that's your kind of gateway drug to getting into the game of
Mm.
hockey is watching it in the Olympics or watching it in the Four Nations face-off, which was a wild, resounding success. Everyone was intoxicated with the Four Nations face-off. So if it's something like that, that you are, dedicated to watching country versus club, but that's your entrance into the sport. And then you kind of find a club, you find a team that you start to root for, and that's your entrance into the NHL, then wonderful. Then that's a net positive for everyone involved. There's going to be injury risk no matter what, right? There's injury risk when you get out of bed in the morning. There's injury risk when you go to a yoga class. There's injury risk when you go on a walk with your dog, right? There's injury risk all the time. I don't blame Gary Bettman for wanting to kind of eliminate those injury risks as much as possible. But the game of hockey is a blast. And it should be a bigger sport, a more popular sport. And Milan Cortina might be the way that we get new eyeballs on it.